House Judiciary. That ran approximately 3.5 hours, in which there were a slew of dramatic moments. Outnumbered now, I'm Harris Faulkner. Melissa Francis, co-anchor of America's Newsroom, Sandra Smith is back. Fox News contributor Emily Campagno, and in the center seat you want Tom Dupree, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General under President George W. Bush. Let's quick go around and get everybody's first thoughts. Tom.
It has to be a huge disappointment today for the Democrats. They clearly wanted to bring the impeachment passions to a boil, and they didn't even achieve a low simmer. I think Mueller was surprisingly halting, surprisingly disconnected from his own investigation, and the points where the Democrats were clearly leading him to try to say he felt the president obstructed justice, not only did Mueller refuse to agree with that, he affirmatively contradicted them and said, I just don't agree with that line of analysis.
Melissa.
I thought that we instantly knew why that day that he took to the podium and he didn't take any questions, and we were all surprised about that. I think we knew why today when we saw this. He had a really tough time answering the questions that he seemed to not know ahead of time. With Nadler, it was a different situation that looked rehearsed, but the rest of it, he was struggling, and it made it seem like he didn't know his own report. Maybe he didn't put it together. He didn't have, there were times that he was asked a question and I knew the answer from the report and he did not.
Like, what is fusion GPS?
Right,
exactly. Didn't know. And much of the country that's involved in watching all of this would know. It's very odd. Sandra?
Fascinating reaction about Robert Mueller himself and his, the way he appears, the way he has asked for questions to be repeated on multiple occasions. And it's coming from both sides of the aisle. David Axelrod, former advisor to former President Barack Obama, he is saying, this is a man that I deeply respect. He was tweeting during the hearing. He said he hasn't appeared publicly or testified publicly, Robert Mueller, in over 6 years. But he says he does not appear to be as sharp as he was then. Byron York, this is painful to watch. Mueller is slow to react. Our own Britt Hume saying Mueller's still struggling to answer questions even after they were repeated. So I don't know that Democrats or Republicans going into this saw Robert Mueller or even thought that that was going to be an element of this hearing, that Robert Mueller was struggling to really take on some of these questions and answer them.
You know, Emily, how is Mueller's credibility holding up at this point? You were making some comments as we were watching.
Right, I think that's what the Republicans have gone after, and frankly, it's been eroded. Now, I think the overarching theme that I saw today was this erosion of what we perceived as this commander of a 2-year investigation to kind of reduce to this feeble man that frankly had zero command of the report or the content, with a self-admission that it was a segmented investigation. So Republicans are pouncing on it. They're pouncing on the credibility both of him as well as the investigation because it's now an admitted staff-led investigation. They focus on the bias. Democrats, however, are focusing on the alleged attempts at obstruction and the but-for the OLC report. But remember, there's a point of contention. Mueller has testified but for the OLC report. We have that now. However, it was evidence, was the but for.
Real quickly, and I want to get to Louis Gohmert because he had a go back and forth that was interesting. But I want to ask you about the point where, was it collusion, was it conspiracy, and that whole convoluted conversation that went on between Mueller and another lawmaker.
Yeah, that was interesting. I think what the point of that exchange was basically to try to rebut the president's tweets saying they found no collusion. And the point, I think, that they were trying to bring out at the hearing is that collusion as defined in the federal criminal code is not the offense, it's conspiracy. But I thought that the colloquy was fairly effective in showing that, look, when people speak colloquially in plain English, they often will say collusion, conspiracy, it pretty much means the same thing. I think that was the point of that little back and forth.
Okay, because it seemed like Mueller was saying that there was, you know, at first they were kind of, as you say, colloquialism, kind of equal, but then legally not equal. I mean, it was really confusing.
Well, and that was one of the points where it seemed as though Mueller made a statement at the hearing that then when they directed him to what he wrote in the report, it contradicted what he just said. And it didn't match, and he didn't seem to acknowledge that there was a mismatch, and then he just kind of leaned back and said, well, I'll just rest on the report.
You know, as journalists, we all just kind of look for inconsistencies. I mean, so we may not have your legal mind, but we know when something doesn't
Well,
happen.
You should know what's in the report. I think that's at the end of the day.
You and I were together when it broke. It now has artwork, mine. I've done some artwork on my forehead.
And mine is dog-eared, too. So.
All right, so Representative Louis Gohmert at one point was asking Mueller about having those anti-Trump lovers, the FBI agent and his paramour, on his team. Here's that exchange. Watch.
Peter Strzok hated Trump. Okay. You didn't know that before he was made part of your team. Is that what you said?
I did not know that.
All right. When did you first learn?
When he did find out, I acted swiftly to have him reassigned elsewhere in the FBI.
Well, there's some discussion about how swift that was, but when did you learn of the ongoing affair he was having with Lisa Page?
About the same time.
He's not corruptly acting in order to see that justice is done. What he's doing is not obstructing justice. He is pursuing justice, and the fact that you ran it out 2 years means you perpetuated injustice.
I take your question.
Talk to me, Tom. What was happening there?
Wow. Well, I was interested in several things. One, that Mueller actually engaged on the question of did he know that he had someone on his team who harbored this deep bias? And number two, that Mueller, for all the talk and the report, and I think he sincerely believes about preserving the appearance of impropriety, he just seemed a little oblivious to the fact that he had this guy, Lisa Page, on his team who clearly harbored bias. That's what's surprising to me, is that he says he recognizes the importance of appearing in no impropriety, but at the same time he wasn't taking the steps promptly to ensure that he would be free of that team.
Yeah, and this comes back to something that Melissa is saying, and that has to do about not just his preparedness for today, but his actual involvement in the case. Look, we need to take a quick 1-minute break. When we come back, counsel to the president, Jay Sekulow, has given a statement. I'll share it. Stay close.
President Trump is tearing our country apart. His trade wars are taxing American workers. His immigration policies are separating parents from their children. His crimes and corruption are threatening the rule of law. And his racist rhetoric is pitting Americans against each other. The Constitution is very clear. Congress has oversight over the president. So what's their response? They're going on vacation for 6 weeks. Seriously? We're in a crisis. That's why I'm asking Speaker Pelosi to cancel summer vacation and conduct daily public oversight hearings to hold Trump accountable for his crimes, corruption, and racism. Business as usual is not working for the American people. We need action, now. I'm Tom Steyer, and I approve this message because we have to stand up to Donald Trump before he destroys our democracy. Join me. Together, we can change this.